As many of you know, I enjoy running. Now, I'm not somebody that goes to the gym and lifts all these weights. I love to do that. I just don't have the time for it and to be consistent with it. But one of the things I do love to do is go and run. And I remember the first time that I ever ran 10 miles. I was so set on doing this. I was determined that I was going to run this 10 miles. Something crazy happened. I did not have headphones. Not only did I not have headphones, but the place that I was going to run was just a big circle. Now, if you know anything about running, you know that running in a circle is a lot more difficult than running on a path where you can see different things. So here I was, set out to run 10 miles in a circle with no headphones. And in right at 2 hours, I ran 27 laps with no noise, no headphones, just my mind full of determination to get me to the place that I wanted to get. Now, you might be asking, how can you do that? How can you have such a strong focus to be able to do that? Well, it reminds me of someone in scripture who was determined and had a strong focus. Even though all they were going to do was be marching in circles, he had to have the determination to lead these people into where God wanted them to be. And of course, this is our friend Joshua from scripture. See, when Joshua was getting ready to go conquer the walls of Jericho, God gave them specific instructions to march around the city. But what's crazy is they were to march with no noise. They were to march with no background music or headphones, if you will, to put it in modern day terms. Rather, they had to march and be quiet. He gave them specific instructions to not speak or shout until he told them. So day after day, there they are in silence, just marching around the city. The determination and focus of that to do what God wanted them to do with no noise, with no focus, with no noise and no background things to keep them company. The focus that they had to have. You can imagine the consistency that it took for Joshua to stay faithful to what God called him to do. And I ask questions like, how in the world was Joshua able to be such a great leader in this? To lead them, to be able to stay faithful and consistent to what God was calling them to do. How was he able to do this? Well, this story takes place in Joshua chapter 6, but I think in Joshua chapter 5, we get insight into how Joshua was able to stay so focused and how Joshua was able to accomplish this great task, even though it took so much determination and focus. So let's now read our family devotional scripture together. Joshua 5:13. When Joshua was by Jericho, he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, a man was standing before him with his drawn sword in his hand. And Joshua went to him and said to him, "Are you for us or for our adversaries?" We often talk about Joshua and the walls of Jericho, but I believe that this great, incredible story starts in this moment. See, Joshua saw somebody in the distance. He didn't know who it was. We find out later that this is actually the second representation of Jesus in the Old Testament. But Joshua didn't know this. All he saw was a commander. And Joshua drew hard lines. You're either for us or you're for the enemy. And this is so important because when it comes to us doing what God called us to do, we have to draw hard lines in our life. When we're encountering with situations or people or temptations, we have to ask ourselves the question, is this temptation or is this person for me or for the enemy? Are they drawing me to Christ or are they pulling me away? And so many times, because we want to flirt with sin, we want to get close to sin as we possibly can, what we do is we try to justify why things that we know are not of God are okay to be close to us. And we try to see how close we can get to these things to where they're not actually affecting us. But we have to be like Joshua if we're going to do what God called us to do. We have to draw hard lines and say, this is either drawing me near Christ or it's pulling me away. So often we blur the lines, though. We blur the lines and we try to make it seem like everything's okay when really we're allowing things in our life that shouldn't be there. And so, if we're going to do what God called us to do, we have to draw lines with the things in our lives, with people in our lives, with different situations, and say, this is either drawing me to God or it's not. And there's no in between. So let's talk about these things now in our family discussion questions.